Good morning, evening, afternoon, I'm tatocat. Welcome to my channel. Today we're playing Echoes, the Lucid9 Fangame. Previously, I said adjutant and chassis incorrectly for about 35 minutes straight. We're just learning about Eris here, who is blue because people were worried that she looked too much like a human. Well, her original models would look too much like a human, so they made them blue so people would know instantly that this was not a human. Yeah. And apparently they were anatomically correct too, because reasons. Yeah, and we're just talking about stuff like that. Yeah, that's where we left off. All right, let's continue. I see, operative. Do you believe my predicament is a similar one? Do I believe your predicament is a similar one? Yes. Do I think so? Not so much. With the information available to me, I don't think trying to shut you down is a logical thing for DCIS to do. By now, they most likely know you exist. If they were worried about you being created, they would have outright prevented it. Even if they don't, they know better than to risk an all-out war with us. Completely fucked as we might be, if they did, they'd be throwing away the best chance Isamu has at defeating this virus. And once we cut off their food and medicine supply, Isamu has at defeating this, I've just read that, once we cut off this food supply, there we go, they'd have to expend actual effort in order to exert control over the city. You said you're not sentient, and I doubt you're networked, since that would defeat the purpose of isolating the cell computer systems. That makes your existence entirely legal, and nobody should have a problem with it. Lemniscate's decades ahead of us in the information race, too. To them, letting us use AI technology is probably like letting a caveman conduct spear research. However, with the amounts of power and secrecy they wield, I doubt CCIS is going to play by the rules. They want absolute control, and that requires absolute caution. Since the human brain isn't built to withstand anything 24/7, the parts of the brain incapable of thought get geared up and take over as a kind of last-ditch effort. It's why heavy exercise can be good for trauma survivors. Tricks your brain into thinking the danger is gone. Not that such a situation would ever be the case. Anyway, DCIS is already wound tight enough that sabotaging us under the table probably seems like a good idea to them. And since they're too smart to start a war and too cautious to do anything to us that can't be hidden or covered up, the one option they have that won't cause a political shitstorm to spy on us or mess with our systems from a distance. Is to spy on us or mess with our systems from a distance. I say this with respect, but if you're not protected by a strong enough firewall or microcryptor system, you might actually become a target. That is a fair assessment, Operative. Where DCIS is interested in eliminating me or studying my systems, they would likely send a greater force than we can prepare for with the strength of our current fortifications. You seem adamant on preventing them from initiating such an attack, Operative. Shall I communicate your concerns to the cell commander on your behalf? Please do. Directive received, Operative. Your thoughts on the issue have been summarized, encoded, and will be conveyed shortly. Is there anything else I can help you with? Cool. Would you mind scanning me? I can't tell if I'm dying these days or if my life is just one giant hangover. Sure. Would you mind scanning me? I can't tell if I'm dying these days or if my life is just one giant hangover. Certainly, Operative. The scan will begin shortly in order to expedite the process and minimize your exposure to ionizing radiation. Please remain motionless until its conclusion. I'm sorry, ionizing what? Radiation, Operative. Do you wish to inoculate yourself with nucleogen for proceeding? Shouldn't be a problem if it's only a few millisieverts. I can already imagine the conversation I'd be having with the commander. Why, yes, ma'am, I did inject myself with military-grade anti-radiative prior to receiving a glorified CT scan from the curvy ceiling ghost. Was I not supposed to do that? Environmental analysis complete. Exception identified. Macro scale. Emission detection apparatus absent from the vicinity. Now consolidating microradiational emission panels. Wave frequency limiter set to 100 petahertz. Maximum estimated exposure 14 millisieverts. Executing scan in T-minus 0.3 seconds. Before I can react, my vision is assaulted by a radiant flash of blue, far weaker than the one I received the last time I fought Birdsong, but still enough to catch me off guard. A slow, blunt pain works its way down the back of my skull, and the bitter taste of steel hangs heavily at the back of my throat, forcing my stomach to turn over in protest. Thankfully, it doesn't last long. My vision clears almost immediately, first into static and then back to normal, albeit with a few red spots working their way across my retinas. Well, there goes the 2 kids I could have accidentally had. Honestly, having to crap out a couple of snotlings out of the wrong hole and keep them from killing themselves seems like a fate way worse than fighting off whatever kind of cancer that scan just gave me. After all, the galaxy reigns over in radiology have been using microbes to zap tumors since 2031. On the other hand, DCIS won't let you get scrapped unless you're poor, genetically defective, or there's something wrong with the fetus. Considering outlawing abortion is the only way to keep out with the suicide rate. Hopefully, Yama won't be angry at me hopefully Yama won't be angry with me when I break the news to him. The hell am I saying? If anything, he'd be mad at me for even considering that we could have that kind of life together. But maybe, just maybe, there's another world out there. A different timeline, a different future. The kind of delusional little girl might have scrawled in a hardcover diary with sequins on its spine and a tiny heart-shaped lock clasping it shut. A purgatory born from the optimism of a child's dream. One where the suffering of the world was farther off, perhaps even gone. One where this little girl met a little boy whose parents never lost hope and refused to let him sink into the darkness of his own mind. Both of them could grow up strong and confident as they always could have. And when this little girl grew up, she could have loved him honestly without having to hold herself back or always needing to decide what kind of love he needed more. Not the love of a mother, because his own mother still made it clear that she cared, nor the love of a sister, since his family had taught him to honor the dead without wishing to join them. Maybe they could have been more prepared when the students vanished from their school, one by one. Maybe they could have stayed in the light, refusing to play a part in this sadistic game of mutilation and corporate politics. This boy could have reached adulthood without being constantly broken and rebuilt. And the girl who loved him could have lived without having to become a weapon, a destroyer of ways, with metal in her heart and wires in her brain that forced her to carry out the will of the powers that would be. Maybe they could have told each other how they felt, kissed under the moonlight and falling sakura petals, and settled down to start a family, one that they'd never abandon or lose faith in. Their children would grow up to start families of their own, continuing the cycle until it was no longer possible to do so. That is, until something went wrong. How long would that take, I wonder? 1 generation? 5? 10? How long would their children take to finally writhe with invisible anguish over the empty future that awaited them? When would they realize that this life was a punishment they never did anything to deserve? What poverty, disaster, or malicious cruelty would finally be egregious enough to make them gaze at the ever thinning paint the white picket fence and say, "No more"? I know the answer already. Nothing would be cruel enough to stop this cycle. Humanity would always lack the willpower and foresight needed to keep more doomed souls from entering this world. The mother who gave birth only to find her son or daughter worthy of constant abuse and derision would never once believe that she had carried wood into a burning house. Where it was once wise to let the warped picket fence fall to the elements, it would instead be repainted in blood around a broken home. A home that children wish to flee from, but cannot escape. A home that makes the sons and daughters of humanity want to cry, but cry out. They'll cry, but they will be too afraid, fearing retribution for feeling anything of value. They will refuse to play any part in this world, but those of ragdolls made flesh, sitting in the corner and waiting for a release that will never come. At least, not one that their miserable lives can provide. And so the white picket fence outside will run red with blood of the forsaken child, and blood will fall upon blood. Flesh will fall upon flesh, and no lesson will be learned. And when the white picket fence finally rots to its core and falls over, another will be built around another house. And this grim display will be ignored, fading into oblivion. Because this is the survival of humanity. This is what it takes for us to not die alone and afraid, knowing we are the last. But I refuse to be a part of this sickness. And I refuse to do something, and I refuse. The sickness takes any more from me. Prithvi? Operative, can you hear me? I look upward with a splitting headache and numb hands to see Eris standing over me. Her user interface configured to display some mechanical approximation of concern. Were she anything more than a machine, I might have believed that she genuinely cared. But that's not to say much more than a machine myself, that I'm much more than a machine myself these days. My sincere apologies, Operative. I was not expecting the inceps microbes in your brain to react to this defensively. As I rise to my feet, I struggle to laugh off the throbbing pain behind my eyes. Don't worry about it. Neither was I. Any guesses on what just happened? I am afraid this is beyond my understanding, Operative. The radiation appeared to have triggered a reboot and damaged assessment cycle in your neural node assembly. Seems like a fairly normal emergency mechanism. What's there not to understand about it? The mechanism is quite understandable, Operative. It is the behavior of the aforementioned mechanism that is not. Standardized emergency firmware for all Special Services Division personnel sets clear limits on the activation conditions for the RADA cycle of all installed neural nodes. While the mechanism is designed to shut down and repair damaged neural and neuroidal tissues in the central nervous system, the risk of said damage occurring via radiation only sufficient to warrant its activation at exposure levels of over 100 MSV. Once all hostile engagements have been resolved, of course. To put it simply, Operative, this was not supposed to happen. Utilizing the sum total of technical data available to me, I would postulate that an artifact in your local INSEP's precedence algorithm or a surge efferent in meter activity is to blame. However, given that the INSEP's source code is restricted to Special Services Division personnel assigned conditional Alpha 1 clearance and above, I sadly have no way of proving that what you experienced was an accident. Oh, she doesn't have that type of clearance? Well, at least you aren't making this stuff up as you go. At least I don't think you are. So, then, who do I report this to? Employee records indicate that 4 users have been granted access to view and modify the INSEP source code. In order to resolve this issue as quickly as possible, I would suggest relaying malfunction reports to any one of these personnel. You are cleared to access further details, Operative. Shall I retrieve them for you? I prefer if you just sent the report to whoever. It'll be easier on the brass if I don't know who's who in the echelons above me. Understood, Operative. Your scanner reading and concerns regarding them have been summarized and relayed to the relevant personnel, along with the evidence that they have remained anonymous to you. Is there anything else I can help you with? Oh, I guess we finally got to know all about Eris. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but that is what I'm calling her. That's everything for now, thanks. That's everything for now, but thanks. I appreciate the assistance. Oh, who's this? She's really something, isn't she? Oh, it's Emmy. You're in different clothes than usual, I think. It's been a while since I've actually looked at you, Emmy. I turn around to see the commander walking towards me, and I can immediately see that something's changed. Okay, so I'm not wrong. Her laid-back grin and tracksuit have been replaced by a faint look of concern in the standard armored dress uniform of the SSD, worn only when representing the division as a sub-branch of the corporate navy. Whatever happened to make her change into it? It can't be anything good. Sorry, Eris. I know you're busy introducing yourself to 9, but something just came up that I need her for. Can you give us some privacy for the next hour and a half? Wait, what? Wait a second. Who? What? Oh, it's supposed to be Eris speaking, but it says Emmy. Oh no. Of course, Commander. Because she wouldn't say that to herself. Also, this thing got bigger. Here's right. Okay, so it's... Okay, wait. Okay, let me see. Her talking. Okay, her talking. Okay, it's still Eris talking. It still says me though. In the absence of your override, all sensors and projection apparatuses will be deactivated for the next 90 minutes. Eris's projected body spools up and retracts to its emitter, and the commander turns to me, dropping her previous forced smile. We need to talk, operative. Now. Come with me, and don't bring any electronics with you. With no logical choice but to obey her orders, I follow the commander as she passes through the atrium and opens the door to her office. Something's definitely wrong. Thought you'd be in the training room, ma'am. I was, operative. Ishimoto was doing his proficiency test, and I wanted to supervise him personally, but then one of my staff told me they detected movement in my office. I put Eris in charge, came back, and found this on my desk. The commander reaches towards her desk and hands me what appears to be a folded sheet of paper. Take a look. Wait, is this a letter? Who the hell sends a letter in 2041? I ask that now. It's what texts and emails are for. Sure can't wait to find out. The first thing I see, after unfolding it, is a red and black sigil in the shape of a rounded infinity symbol. A lemniscate. I was wondering when things would get interesting again. Wait. The holographic ghost robot nurse lady that was designed after anatomically correct robot nurses and scanned you and broke your brain for a second when it shouldn't have, wasn't already interesting, but the letter is. That's what you really need to be like, oh yeah, things are getting good. A letter, not the ghost. Because I thought the ghost was interesting. She just kind of right in front of us and then somehow told us all about the nurse stuff. I mean, I guess she answered the question why she looked like that character from Nimbus 4. um, but I guess we'll see what got so interesting in the next episode.